In any case, now we're joined in Studio 3 by Josh Kraft. Josh, of course, is running to be mayor of Boston, looking to unseat Michelle Wu. First vote, preliminary vote, September 9th. He's not only going to take our questions, but if you have a question for Josh Kraft, you can give him a buzz during the next half hour. He'll be here to the bottom of the hour at 877-301-8970. Josh, nice to see you.
Nice to see you, Jim and Marjorie, and of course, thoughts and prayers to everyone involved in the tragedy out in Minneapolis.
Horrible.
Horrible. So, Josh Kraft, you've not been doing great in the polls, but you seem to be optimistic. So tell us where that optimism comes from. What do you see?
Well, the optimism, thanks, Margie. The optimism comes from being out in the communities, hearing from people, listening to people. Everywhere we go, myself, our team, volunteers, wherever we go, regardless of socioeconomics, race, ethnicity, language, we hear the same thing. People are frustrated. People don't feel connected to the city government. They don't feel listened to, and they want change. And we're going to work with that passion and that passion for change, and we're going to work hard and try to get as many folks as we can to the booth on September 9th.
You know, Josh Kraft, you've criticized Mayor Wu on a whole bunch of fronts, and I'm sure you will today, and we'll give you as much opportunity as we have. But let's focus on one thing. How do you think she's dealt with the threats to Boston from Donald Trump and his minions? And would you have done or do anything differently vis-a-vis those threats than Mayor Wu has done?
Listen, I think Mayor Wu's done a very good job with that. And as I said the last time I was on at the library, I just want to be clear. I think Donald Trump is unfit to be president. I don't think he's got the temperament, the emotions, and we see it every day, chaotic changes every single day that impact all of us in this across the country. And
Sorry. No,
yeah,
go ahead.
she did good. And if that's what you were asking,
It
but
was
then
what I asked.
and then now you asked on the second part what I would do.
Yeah.
And again, I am completely opposed to the mass deportation plans. I think it's outrageous that people can be in their places of work, house of worship, and school and be removed with zero connection to violent crime. Now, I was taught by my parents, these are the exact people that you protect and give support to. And in my 35 years working in neighborhoods in Boston and Chelsea, these are the folks I worked with and learned so much from. So in conclusion, to me, when it comes to Trump, it's not about performance, it's about action. To me, it's not about who's got the snappy one-liner to rip Trump apart, and it's not the bells and whistle press conference. It's who has the plans to deal with the consequences of Donald Trump, the policies and plans for the residents of Boston to deal with the consequences of a Donald Trump president. That's what I'm focused on, whether it's housing, schools, access to healthy food, health equity, city services.
You know,
we
go
just,
ahead.
we
I'm
just
sorry,
talked with our
Marjorie.
listeners about what people in Boston should do were the National Guard to come here. What do you think we should do?
For the National Guard to come here.
Or ICE. I mean, Todd Lyons, the
ICE
acting head
is
of ICE,
here.
said,
Yeah.
we're coming, we're going to flood the zone. was
I
his
think we
expression.
work with, like I said earlier, personally, it's outrageous that people can be removed from their place of work, their house of worship, their school with zero connection to violent crime, and we need to stand by those folks that are an integral part of our community.
But would you like to see us take some kind of action, take to the streets or protests or
Whatever's going to keep our immigrant population safe and secure, an immigrant population that has contributed so much to our community. I've actually had 2 or 3 people come to me to help relatives that have no misdemeanors, no felonies, and now are being told no Zoom court dates, you got to come live. So we know what that means. So I would say whether it's going to the streets, protests, have people, stand with people, whatever's going to keep them the safest, that's what I'm for.
Josh Kraft, one thing, we're going to take a call in a second here. Speaking of law enforcement, Mayor Wu was here yesterday. We asked her if she thought that the sheriff of Suffolk County should resign. She said she thought she needed more facts. In the intervening 24 hours, he's taken a medical leave. This is Steve Tompkins. Medical leave. Is a medical leave an appropriate interim resolution to the charges against Steve Tompkins, or should he resign?
I don't know enough about the situation. I haven't looked at the court briefs or any of the information there. If this is what Steve Tompkins wants to do as a first step to anything, staying, leave, whatever, it's fine by me. I think it's fine. I do want to say, though, I was a little surprised because when Tanya Fernandez Anderson got in trouble back whenever that was, within 5 minutes, there was a statement from City Hall saying she should resign. So I do find that a little hypocritical.
Catherine in Dorchester, you were calling. You're on with Josh Kraft. Welcome to the show. Hi.
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 Everybody. Hi, Josh.
Hi, Catherine. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. I'm a mom, and my kids are returning to school, and I do have concerns about the current situation around the buses. Can you talk about what you're going to do to make sure my kids and other kids get to school safely and on time?
Catherine, thanks for the call. We appreciate it. Josh?
Thanks, Catherine, and I'm sorry you have to worry about that. One of our plans in our education policy is to break out, to have two leaders at BPS. The superintendent should focus on what they do best. Teaching kids, supporting teachers, supporting classrooms, supporting families. And then we need to strip all the operations away and have almost a person at the same level. I'll say for now, superintendent of operations, that could get the buses to run on time and safely. School safety, which has become an increasingly, has gotten on the minds of people increasingly. And this person doesn't even have to be someone with an academic background. It's someone that understands logistics and getting things done. Because then, whether it's a superintendent Skipper or whoever, they can focus on what they do best.
Let's go to Doug in Dorchester. Doug, you are next. You're on with the candidate for mayor. That would be Josh Kraft. Hi, Doug.
Hi, thank you for taking my call.
Of course.
Mr. Kraft, one of the things that I think we have in common is that my parents are Trump supporters too. I would like to know when you try to explain to your father how dangerous Trump is for the city of Boston and for the country, how do those conversations go?
Look, my dad is, and as you could imagine, and I'm so happy he's in great health, and we've had conversations throughout life, and we'll get to Trump, where we disagree on things, and he's 9 times out of 10 he gets it, and the older I've gotten, he gets it even more, and he's respectful, and he says, "Look, I understand. This is what I think. I know what you think, and that's fine." So there's a mutual respect there when it comes to those discussions.
But let me follow up on what Doug. Thank you for the call. The definition of masochistic is being on vacation on the Cape and watching an event Friday night, a political event, which I did on streaming. It was your event at the. It was at Roxbury Community College. Is
Yeah.
that right?
Yeah,
Roxbury
RCC,
Community College. Yeah, only because you should take a break, like Margie. It wasn't a criticism of the event; it was a criticism of myself. I was sort of surprised, though. You've gone out of your way to separate yourself from your father on Trump. You called him a lunatic the other day. You just said what you said.
Yeah, and I've said it to my dad.
And so, not only is your father, and I'll repeat what I said last time you were on too, a lot of things he's done I have tremendous respect for, and as a person, I have warm feelings for him. But Trump has minions who are threatening the city you want to lead, yet you chose, with a couple of weeks till an election, to have your father, who's friendly and often supportive of that president, to give a keynote speech endorsing your candidacy at Roxbury Community College. What was
I wouldn't first say
thinking?
it wasn't a keynote speech.
Well,
he
it
was
was a
on a
speech.
panel, and then he did
stood up
about
and
a
gave
minute and 30,
Well, whatever.
2 minutes. And
Why'd
so
you
I wouldn't
think-
call it a keynote.
Why would you say?
Because he's my dad.
Yeah.
And you know what? If I can impact as many people as he has in his life, in my life as mayor, and whatever I do after, I'll be a pretty successful guy. And he's also my dad. I'm proud of him. We don't have to, I'm sure you both don't agree with everything your parents have said and done. And I felt that this was an important event for him to be at. He's done a lot with the Reform Alliance. He's done a lot with reentry. And I was proud to have him there.
Reentry of people
know,
who've been incarcerated. Can I stay on that?
Hold on one
I was
second.
proud to have him
I
there.
hear you.
I always wonder when people have family members, and a lot of us do, who are on the other side of the fence. You ever ask your father why? What are the reasons he would support
Well, I
Donald
know
Trump, given
one
what
of
you
the
just
number
said
one
about
reasons.
immigration and
Yeah,
what's
one of
happening
the
now?
number one reasons. is-
Children's research and all
Sorry,
that
I
kind
cut
of
you
stuff. No, I
off.
was just
Here you
saying
go.
all these terrible things.
Sorry.
Cancer research for children, Harvard, all these schools, what's happening to people that are legally here, sending people off to Uganda, selling people off, going
Mm-hmm.
after people in a really horrible kind of way. What is it that he sees in him?
Well, I can't. We don't get into in depth on this
Yeah.
issue, but I can tell you the number one thing.
Yeah.
And with my dad, with me, my family, we're about loyalty. Okay. When my mother passed away in 2000, July of 11, this guy called my dad every week, checked in on him. How are you doing? Not just once or twice. Sorry,
okay.
consistently every day. And I think that really meant something to my dad. And I think he holds that strong. And that's the overriding issue. We don't really get into, oh, this happened, this happened,
Yeah.
this happened. I've said a couple times, this is bad and whatever.
So your father also, during this his minute and a half the other night, said there was a challenged the false narrative about you. What is the false narrative? What's false being spread around about Josh Kraft and his
That I'm a
candidacy?
Trump supporter, I'm a Trump supporter, then I'm a Trump guy, I'm a MAGA guy. And it's 1,000% not true. I don't even have, my record speaks to itself. You know, my mother and my dad raised us to make sure the people, I'll tell you what they used to say is my mother and my dad, but my mother, your worst day is most people's best day. So you make sure targeted and marginalized groups not only are safe, but they have access to opportunity. That's the only way you'll build an equitable society. So for me, I've spent 35 years in Boston and Chelsea working with young people, families, other people. I've done work in the reentry world, the substance use disorder world, a lot of immigrants at Boys and Girls Club. So the very people that he targets are the ones that I've spent my life working with. So why would I be a Trump supporter? I've never voted for him. I've never given him a cent. I am a Democrat. I voted for Kamala Harris. I donated to her campaign. If you look, 93% of my political donations are to Democrats. So, but I think they're spreading it because it's a way for Mayor Wu to avoid her failed policies around housing, around mass and cast, around White Stadium. That's all we get. Name calling Trump instead of, okay, what about your housing policy? What about your mass and cast policy? Well, you had her yesterday. $172 million for White Stadium. She can't even give either of you a number, like a ballpark number. That's not only hard to believe, it's disrespectful to every single taxpayer in the city of Boston. Come on.
So speaking of money, can we stay on money for
Yeah, sure.
a second and taxpayer money? You made a commitment to the Globe that you would disclose your tax
Mm-hmm.
returns, and you announced a week or two ago, or your team did, that you would not. Why?
Okay, so what I provided was, I was going to say my revenue, my income, the income I've received, my taxes, and charitable donations from 2023, 2024. I think that gives people a very clear picture of my personal financial situation. And in addition, I did much more than was required by me legally as a candidate.
But why
Look,
don't you think the
but
voters have a
Josh-
right
Let
to
me
know?
finish, please.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
And from day one, at Boys and Girls Club, as a candidate, I have never hid from the fact that I grew up in a privileged situation. I don't know what the word is, privilege. You know, I say I wasn't born on third base. I was born at home plate. And I've owned that, and I'll never hide from that. And two other things, it's allowed me, yes, to lead a life of working in community, working with people, listening to people, learning from people. And in addition, the story I told you before, the values of my parents have also driven me.
Margie, I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, Jim was asking, don't you think people have a right to know that? I think a lot of people do think they have a right to know, see your tax returns. But correct me if I'm wrong. You have $3.6 million in revenue that we don't know.
6.3.
6.3.
Where that came from?
Why don't you just tell us now where it came from?
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
if
right.
you-
We could break some
WGBA.
news
No, I'm
here.
serious. If you were a voter and a candidate said, I don't care if they're making 100,000
Came from the family
or
business.
6 million.
It comes from the family business.
That's where the whole 6.3 million.
Where else would it come from?
And also, you wouldn't disclose investments, and I understand some are in a blind trust.
Yes.
How about the ones that are not in a blind trust?
I have personal investments that are just mine. I mean, I can Disney, random stocks.
But why wouldn't you just
the
put a
blind
list of
trust.
that? Why wouldn't you just put a list out about that, like when you leave the studio at 12:30? Here are my non-blind trust investments, so that people don't have. My attitude, by the way, which has nothing to do with you alone. Anytime any public figure, would-be public figure, chooses not to disclose that which they could, you should feel free to infer the worst. So why not leave the studio and just say, here are all my investments, here are the companies, and other than the blind trust companies. Why not do that?
Maybe I will, maybe I won't, but I can tell you I disclose more than was legally required of any candidate to disclose. There's a lot of candidates that don't disclose anything.
We're talking to Josh Kraft. David in Beacon Hill, you are next on Boston Public Radio with Josh Kraft. Welcome, David. Hi.
Hi, how are you doing?
Good.
So yes, I wanted to call. So I'm in my 20s. Still listen to Jim and Marjorie every day. And just kind
What do
of
you mean still?
Josh,
God, I'm sorry.
I know. Well,
I'm
love
kidding.
you guys.
Go ahead.
Just wanted to say, so Boston nightlife. Things close very early. The downtown seems kind of dead. I'm 27. It's not as lively as I'd like it to be. Josh, what do you plan on doing to make Boston more lively?
Well, maybe I'll go out with you one night and you could tell me what we should do, sir.
Let's do it. I'd love to.
All right. Drinks are on me. Nah, just kidding. Look, I'm going to tell back last September, I was leaving something at 60 State Street. There was a dinner. I left after the reception. I was walking back to the North End, walked through Faneuil Hall. It was a beautiful mid-September night. It was probably 8 o'clock. Faneuil Hall was dead. I was like, this is crazy. This is a place where in my 20s I was all the time. And I hear from my own children, who are probably the caller's age, 25 and 27, that Boston, the nightlife is not great. So I think we have some great leaders in this city that have successful nightlife businesses. And I would love to get them around a table and figure out how we can make Boston a destination for young people. Especially, I don't know if it means extending last call. I'm not saying to do that. It's just one thing. But one idea we had with Faneuil Hall is celebrate the diversity of all our neighborhoods. Make Faneuil Hall a cultural, a nightlife but cultural destination. Celebrate the diversity of our neighborhoods with restaurants, bars, nightclubs at all of Faneuil Hall to hopefully attract people from the different neighborhoods, and then they can all be in one place. Now, it might sound Pollyannish, but I think it's an idea that we could make a reality. Excuse me.
Thank you much for your call. We appreciate it.
Josh Kraft, you and your family have been huge supporters of Israel. Many Jewish groups are very upset now with what's
Right,
going
of
on
course.
with Gaza. What do you think? You're
I
not
think
running. You're
it's-
not running for president, but what do you think should be going on?
I'm an American Jew. I'm a supporter of Israel, but I think it's horrible what's happening now. Children, look, we all talk about any war, wherever it is, there's collateral damage. But you know what? When it's kids, I got a problem with that. And it's horrible what's happening to the kids in Gaza. Starvation, and all the other, it's horrible. I don't like looking at it. I think there needs to be a change in Israeli leadership.
Do you think the United States should continue supplying the weapons that we are to Israel?
Look, I don't want to talk about those federal issues. I want to focus, I've worked with kids. I think it's horrible what's happening to the kids. It's not right. I think Netanyahu has to go.
Let's go to Stan and JP. Welcome. You're on with Josh Kraft, candidate for mayor. Hi.
Hi, Josh. It's Dan from JP. So, I've moved here from Ohio, and the traffic just seems to be so awful in this city, and I just can't help but think that all these random bike lines everywhere are making the traffic worse. Do you have any thoughts on this, or a solution, perhaps?
Do you have any thoughts on bike lanes?
I think you do. I think you might.
No, we discussed it last time, but I want to thank you. I think it was Dan.
Dan, it is Dan
yeah,
from
Dan.
JP. Yep.
I want to clarify something that everyone said, oh, you're not. I am not against bike lanes. As I said the last time I was on, what I'm against is how they were installed. There was no detailed studies of traffic, bike, and pedestrian flow. There was no studies about impact on small businesses, and thoughtful community feedback was ignored. And the results are right around the corner. Big Daddy's Pizza, Richie, he's down like 35, 40%. Businesses in West Roxbury down 15, 20%. And look, I want to do those studies and then figure out the best places to put bike lanes.
I forgot the name of that. Was it Dan? Whoever it was, thank you very much for your call. We appreciate it.
We have a lot of people texting about the cost of living in Boston. We had a caller yesterday asked Mayor Wu about the residency requirement that are in certain departments, cops and firefighters, and many others have to live at least 10 years in the city of
Yep.
Boston to get jobs here. Think that law should remain, that requirement should remain?
I think we need to look at it now because there's a shortage of Boston police officers at the uniform level, and then obviously that shortage feeds into the detective level. And look, public safety, without public safety, there's no city. There's no Jim and Marjorie, there's no bike lanes, there's no biking. And if it's something we have to look at to suspend temporarily to get good people, get people back on the force, and then let them earn money, and then require them to come into the city for a certain amount of time. I don't know. I think we can get creative with it and figure out a way to make things more affordable for people that want to do that work and make the city better.
Jennifer in Boston, you're on with Josh Kraft. Thanks for calling.
Hi, Jennifer.
Hi, thanks for taking my call. You've been talking a lot about policies and the fact that it seems as though you think you have policies and Mayor Wu doesn't, but I haven't heard any specifics. You mentioned housing and schools and safety.
Sure.
I'd like to know specifics.
All right, so I'll give you housing and schools, and then please go to joshforboston.com. We have a bunch of policies. I'm going to whip through these. First, on housing, we know there's 26,000 units of permanent housing that cannot be built because it's too expensive and difficult to get them built. We want to jumpstart those housing projects, those 26,000 units of housing, for the first reason that we are in a housing emergency. The way out of it is to build more housing. Availability equals affordability. But then, Jen, with those units, there's $125 to $140 million of tax revenue. So we're going to take a portion of that and create a first-time homebuyer program that includes working families. Right now, working families make too much money to qualify for programs, but not enough money to buy a house straight in the city of Boston. So we are going to increase the income eligibility with some of that tax revenue to make sure working families can buy homes in the city they want to live in. Second thing, we have a program called opt-in rent control, where if a landlord commits to keeping his or her rents at minimal increases over 10 years, and a renter, in turn, gets a stabilized rent that they can afford to live in the Boston, then the landlord will get a 20% tax rebate. Again, a portion of that $140 million will be used for that. We actually we came up with that policy with housing advocates and landlords, and we have a landlord that owns 600 units that already has committed to that.
Why a voluntary program, though? Why not a mandatory program like Mayor Wu is talking about?
Well, that's through the legislature. It was never approved, and I don't think it ever will be approved. Mandatory
Should it be approved? Should it be approved?
Mandatory rent control, where it's been. If you look at Minneapolis and St. Paul, it's been approved in St. Paul. It's not in Minneapolis. Rents in Minneapolis have gone down.
When rent control was repealed in 1994 by the voters, do you know how many cities and towns voted to keep rent control?
No, I have no idea.
348. You know which? To repeal it, 348, and the three that had it voted to keep it, and they were just outvoted by the people that didn't have it. Do you support? I know you say the legislature's not going to do anything about it, and I think you're right. Do you support the proposal though? And even if you don't, do you think the legislature should not approve what the city council overwhelmingly and the duly elected mayor of Boston proposed?
Here's what I support. I support, and I'm going to answer everything. I'm going to start. I support our program,
Understood.
opt-in rent control. It was developed with landlords and housing advocates around a table.
Understood.
And I was at the table too. The history on legislative mandated rent control has shown to hurt cities. If you look at St. Paul and Minneapolis, Minneapolis does not have it. St. Paul has it. Investments in building of units in St. Paul has decreased. So now there's less units.
So you don't
Rents are
support
gonna
Wu's
go.
proposal?
No, I don't support legislation.
So how would you feel? You become mayor and you take over. And are you okay? You approve a policy. City council, I think, overwhelmingly approves a policy, whatever it is. You're okay with the legislature deciding that, listen, we don't like it. We don't care.
I'll follow the
that the
rules
leaders
of
of
the-
Boston. You're okay with that?
I'll follow. Look, there's been some other. Are you okay with the city? Well, they didn't approve it, so that's a bad example.
Well, I think
No,
it-
what I'm okay with was I will sit and take the time to speak to the city council, speak to our Boston legislators, review all the information. In the meantime, I would hope our rent control program takes hold and spreads throughout the city, and we create more affordable rentals for people that need them. If Jen too, I know she wanted to know on the school program. I can give you a few nuggets on our school policy.
Give us 45 seconds on that.
45 seconds on school. Educate every student regardless of their academic, social, or emotional standing. Number one, improve literacy rates by 10% a year in the lower elementary school. Create vocational hubs across the city while also getting the long-awaited capital improvements to Madison Park. There's other things for students. Parents, reopen the office for parents at City Hall, which helps parents navigate BPS. Also, add back elected members to the school committee. Finally, I told you about the idea with the split superintendents. There's much more on there, Jen. Just the other thing we're going to look at is the lottery system for people to choose schools. It's from 2013. It's archaic. It has not been updated since then. It needs to be updated.
I think the home rule thing that you were talking about before. I think the bigger thing to a lot of people is that Boston wants to do something, the mayor wants to do it, the people want to do it, the city council wants to do it, and the state overrules them. I mean, it's a home rule thing on many issues. So
I know that came up with the commercial tax.
It comes up with lots of things. So is that okay? I mean, should Boston be able to do what they want?
Even if they're wrong, by the way.
Yeah.
This is what I'd say. Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
Is that it's the mayor's responsibility. I just look at the mayor's job. I look at the mayor's job as the ultimate in community building, bringing people together, unifying. So my job as the mayor is to make sure I have the right relationships in the legislature so I can sit down, discuss, this is really important. This is why. Tell me what your issues are with it, or what your fear is, and let's work it out. It's all about relationship, building a sense of unity, letting people know we're all on the same page, and we got to work together to move forward.
Last question for you about financing. One of the other things you bristle at, and I assumed you were going to say this when your father mentioned the false narrative thing, is Mayor Wu and others have accused you of trying to buy an election. And while I would offend if I were running, I don't like the word buy if I were you either. You have spent a couple of $1 million of your own money. It is perfectly legal to do that because they obviously want the job. I was looking this morning at the most recent, at least that I could find, financial sheet for your campaign. It's not a ton of money in the bank at the end of July. Are you going to spend, how much more of your own money are you going to spend
and
on this
I know we're running on, but I have an answer to this. Look,
please.
I'm going against the power of incumbency, okay? A sitting mayor is not lost since 1949. Mayor Wu, to her credit, has been a city council or mayor for 13 plus years. She's been able to build national and local networks for fundraising. But if we're going to give people an honest choice, yeah, I have to loan myself money. But I find it really hypocritical that Mayor Wu says I'm trying to buy the election. In the past, our past election for Attorney General, Mayor Wu wholeheartedly endorsed Shannon Liss-Reardon, who self-funded her campaign with a lot more money than I donated, against Andrea Campbell, whose story of resilience is something that everyone in Boston should celebrate. But now that I'm running against her, I'm trying to buy the election. Isn't that hypocritical?
How much more are you going to lend your campaign?
Isn't that hypocritical?
I'm not here to answer your questions, but thank you. How much more are you going to lend your campaign?
I don't know. I'll decide when I decide.
But you will.
I'll decide when I decide.
You're going to put out that list of investments after the show?
I'll decide when I decide.
Josh Kraft, it's good to see you.
Great to see you both.
Assuming
Thanks
you
for
make it
having
through
me.
September 9th, we hope to see you a lot in September and October.
Definitely.
Thanks so much for your
Thanks,
time.
man.
Thank
Have
you.
a great...
Thank you very much for coming in.
JoshForBoston.com.
Josh for Boston and Jen,
JoshForBoston.com.
I answered some of your questions, but please look at our policies. Have a great Labor Day weekend, Marjorie and Jim, and thoughts again out to the folks in Minneapolis.
Nice to see you.